Hi, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for attending today's session, DocStar 102, Make Your Capture Process More Efficient. We're going to be going over a pretty packed agenda today. There's a varying level of people on the phone, some people that are current DocStar Eclipse customers, some on the older products. So today we're going to be reviewing DocStar ECM, which is the rebranded name for Eclipse. Certainly some of the concepts that you're going to see in the demonstration portion might be a little bit more technical, so feel free to reach out to us after this session to maybe schedule a private one-on-one to discuss your particular capture requirements. So you'll see some different options today as we move through the presentation. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of talk to you specifically about scanning and setting up scans in the right type of profiles. So things like when you're looking and considering capture, how are you classifying the document? And that can be done through things like barcode. It could be done through things like our unstructured classification engine, but also how you separate documents. So, most people aren't capturing documents one at a time. So how do you bulk capture and separate these documents? And then certainly the security requirements around them. So if you're capturing HR onboarding documents that might include I-9 and various other things, how do you separate them? And you have to think about these for each capture requirement you do have. And then physically, where are you storing them, whether it's in the cloud or local, and then what type of access is required for you to, for instance, scan from a multifunction copier, and how does that work? And you'll see that as part of our batch import process. So for housekeeping items, you'll see on the right the question and answer bar that is on the GoToMeeting. Feel free to enter your questions there, as well as the chat window. Hannah, our social media and digital marketing specialist, is handling those questions there as we go. And at the end of the process, certainly if you have a question, a verbal question, we'll open up the lines for that. You also see in the handout section, this PowerPoint is there, so you can download it at any time. All right, so the agenda, we're going to go over kind of some of the new features in the 1752 release. This is the current shipping version of DocStar. Some of them are somewhat kind of capture-esque, but there's some nice little features there that you might just not be aware of. We're going to bring to your attention. We'll quickly talk about scanning. A lot of people just throw the paper in and scan, and it's scanned in full color, and there's all sorts of issues with that in terms of storage and speed and performance. So we'll kind of look at that. And then we're going to get into option 1 through 10. These are the different capture methods that are available through the core product and some of our ancillary add-on solutions that we provide. And today we're also going to be doing our fourth demo is going to be on push filing, which is kind of a cool approach. And that certainly does require some tools, but can really reduce the amount of data entry. So that's going to be in our demonstration portion. All right, so as it relates to new stuff in 1752, we have, there's now this new related documents function. It shows up in your alert workflow, so this number A here right on the screen. And you can configure that within your user preferences of what shows up there, how old the document needs to be. That's a great spot to just go and retrieve documents that you may have recently captured, or you're not sure where they ended up without searching. You can just go right to the recent documents. Probably the biggest capture feature change is now that, and very much if you are familiar with the DocStar 3X platform, you used to tie a template to a scan profile. So by selecting now a content type, which is very similar to a template, like AP invoice, it will automatically assign the scan settings for that. This is useful in a number of things. One, it defaults all of the required settings for that scan to that type of document. So that reduces a lot of the complexity around of which scan profile am I supposed to use. And you can see here in our two examples, you'll see the interface change a little bit, but you also have this capture tab now in your content type builder where you can set one of the scan profiles that you have created. So that's kind of a nice thing. And there's multiple places where you can actually get that done. You can do it on the cogwheel right within the scan box, or directly from the content type builder from the admin tab. Additionally, you now have and can set up barcodes without creating a workflow. So right in the scan settings now, you're going to notice this big red area below where you can actually create the barcode region right within the scan settings. So before, you would have to actually go in to open up the document viewer and apply it that way, or through a full workflow. Not necessary anymore, because now the scan profile gets tagged to the content type. So you don't have to actually go and create a workflow and be familiar with our workflow designer to be able to create those barcode or OCR regions. Something hard to show, but the kiosk mode, if you're familiar with that, if you have multiple people sharing a scan station, before you'd have to log out and log back in. Now with the kiosk mode, based on who you're logged in that Windows profile, it will automatically switch the user profile, DocStar profile. So it saves a little bit of time from logging in and logging out. So the kiosk mode now works. And if you aren't familiar with that, feel free to give our support a call, or our professional services a call, or just email me specifically, and I'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction. So then you're going to notice there's a bunch of new user preferences. So we'll go into that in a little detail, but one is, as you can see in the screenshot below here, you can set different types of OCR character recognition. So we get more granularity and more control over OCR and barcode recognition in the new 1752 product. They've also upgraded the OmniPage engine, which is a nuance OCR engine. So it's a new and improved. So OCR quality is going to be a better fit. And like I said, you're going to get a lot more capabilities in terms of OCR clarity and extraction. You'll see things like this very large text, legacy mode, character filtering, recognition mode. So by default, it is RM auto, but then you can go to different recognition modes. And we can, we're not going to discuss that in too much detail today, but feel free to reach out to our support and we can go into that in more detail. All right, so in terms of setting up your scanner, desktop scanners are going to be ideal for large volume of scanning. There's things in desktop scanners that aren't in copiers, multi-feed detection. There's little recorders now in the scanners to know crumpling, and the ability to, put a lot of documents in, and the quality of the document is always better in a desktop scanner. So it's always ideal to use a desktop scanner. However, a lot of our customers certainly use copiers, and we understand that. So any desktop scanner that is PIX TWAIN or EMC ISIS based driven, or has a driver, we will support. So those Fujitsu scan snaps, unfortunately, aren't TWAIN or ISIS enabled, so those won't be good fit for us. But when you do set up your scanner, we have this concept of the DocStar client now. So for us to be able to run the peripheral, the scanner, we do need that local client local there and running. So if you're not familiar with the client, we'll show you how to implement that, and it's very easy to install the client application. And that's where you actually set up your scan profile information. So a few things that you're going to need to look at is resolution. 240 to 300 dpi is ideal for any type of OCR. The lower the resolution, the lower the pixels on the scan, and the lower the quality. Obviously, the faster the scanner will move, the lower the resolution, the faster it will move. So we typically prefer a 300 dpi black and white document. So A lot of people don't realize that you scan in color, it's either a 24 or 32-bit document versus a 2-bit document. So we're talking, 12 to, 15% times increase in the size of the document, and also that increases and decreases the performance of the system. Obviously, taking a 1 meg file versus a 100K file and loading that into your server, not only storage more, but also the performance is also significantly throttled back. You also want to see there the auto size detection, and different scanners support different things, but this will allow you to scan mixed sorts of documents, receipts, longer legal pages, 8.5 by 11, etc. And then you'll notice here that the split method. So if you are capturing in batch, one of the best things to do is really have a prep station, a card table, or something that you're prepping your documents. And ideally, without having to put a blank piece of paper or a barcode sheet, most documents fall into 1, 2, or 3 pages. So having a scan profile for 1, 2, or 3 page separation, and then stacking your documents when you're prepping them. So if you're scanning invoices and you put all your 1-page invoices together, using the every 1 page count separation is going to be ideal for you. This way you're not having to deal with dropping in blank page separators. Same with a 2-page or a 3-page document. Now, in some cases, it might be a mixed value in terms of the number of pages. So that's where we're going to use things like a blank page. The tough thing with a blank page, though, is that it doesn't always read blank. There's varying levels of white when it reads that page, and that's where those 2 items above, blank page threshold and blank page margin. So the threshold is how much white it actually sees on that page, or how blank it seems. So if you have a little dirty scanner, you get little dots. The higher the threshold, the more flexible it'll be. The blank page margin is, so sometimes when you scan, you get a fuzzy edge or some black on the edge. So this blank page margin moves the zone of where it's looking for a blank page closer into the center of the document. So these are some nice features. If you do have the barcode's always better than a blank page. And then you also have the option of separating on a barcode change. So anytime where you can get data into a barcode, and again, a barcode is just a type of font, that's always the best approach. And again, maybe your ERP system can print a barcode on whatever we're generating, or as documents come in, you can barcode label them, but that's always one of the best approaches. But you got to have the right scenario, because creating a barcode page could take longer than physically just indexing it. So manual import, you get less features, obviously, because there's no scanning. So things like auto size detection and things like that are kind of not necessary, but you do get some of the same deskewing, despeckling, blank page, etc. You do have the auto rotate, which is also helpful. It won't auto rotate based on the orientation. The system doesn't know the orientation is landscape or portrait or upside down. But if you know everything's coming in a portrait and is landscape, you can rotate 180 degrees and it will put it in a landscape format. Excuse me. You'll also notice to the right of the browse button, when you're capturing through import, is the different types of selects. So without the DocStar client running locally, when you browse, you can only select one document at a time. If you do have the client, however, you're able to grab as many documents in one shot as you'd like. And then based on these browse options here, depending on, if you are using a mobile device, you can attach documents in a more mobile-friendly environment. So those are nice. We do have out on the Apple and Android store, Google Play Store, is a DocStar application, and that's really designed around searching approvals and some workflow. That is being further and further developed, so that you'll get the ability to capture an index from a mobile device as well. But anybody that is capturing from a mobile device, we have a number of workarounds or ways to capture documents into the system. You also should think about image enhancement, so deskewing, despeckling. If we're going to be doing, as you'll see in the demonstration, what we call keyword searching or content search OCR, this is ability to read every word off of every page. The better quality, 300 dpi, image enhancement on that document. Those are going to clean up that document so you get the best possible keyword searching that you can. Anything that's obviously electronic by nature, a lot of that image enhancement isn't all that necessary. And then you also have the capability to merge documents together. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but within any of the action menus, whether it's in the capture or in the results grid, the search, retrieve, you have the ability to merge multiple documents. And that is a nice feature if you're capturing from disparate sources and you want to merge them into one. Ideally, when you are capturing, you want to keep documents separate. So if you're capturing an invoice, a packing slip, and a purchase order, ideally they stay separate, because then you can do workflow that's targeted to those specific document types. And then also you have exception reporting capabilities, and it's a lot easier to find. Some people do like to just merge them all into one file. So anything you merge, the first item that you select in the grid control in the row will be the source document. So if I have invoice, packing slip, purchase order, the packing slip and purchase order will be merged into the invoice image and use and inherit the metadata of that particular invoice. All right, so probably one of the most useful tools is the batch import. And again, this, you have to run the client on this. So we're going to show how to set up a hot folder. So it's pretty easy. You want to put a hot folder on your desktop and just drag and drop email attachments or things like that. It's really easy to do. So this is the screen here, and you basically open the client, batch import, and then you enter a name and you select the directory import type. It will just ask you for the path you'd like, and obviously you browsed out to your desktop folder, and then at the bottom what content type you want it to come into. And then whether you want to schedule it to run or if you want to just actually click the button run now. Typically it's a scheduled type of a thing. So this is really easy to set up. Support can help you with this. We also have full micro lessons. So if you really want to kind of dig in, carecentral.docstar.com, carecentral.docstar.com. Register right there as a new user and access the e-learning sites. We have 20 different micro lessons that you can take, and one of those is obviously, we call it the processor. That's probably the first one you're going to want to look at, but it goes into how to configure these things. Additionally, we can also look at emails. So we do have Outlook integration, so you can manually push things, but email would be typically process inboxes, AP invoices at your domain, contracts at yourdomain.com. And then we would utilize the email functionality to pull in those to pull in those emails and the attachment. Typically what would happen is the body becomes page one and the attachments are the following pages. We do store in the native format. So typically if it is Outlook, it's MSG. Email is typically MSG or EML. And certainly it stays in that format in DocStar. So if you ever want to, you use the save a copy from the actions menu, and that will download the email so that will launch it into your native application. It might be Outlook or Lotus or what have you. And all that's driven through the Windows DocStar automation service. So, all of these things run through that. So let me go through kind of the options now, and I'll kind of go through these somewhat quickly because there's 10 of them, and then I want to get into the live demonstration. So the best approach, option one here for email capture, is certainly if you are geographically distributed and the documents are small and they're non-confidential, non-proprietary. So you have two locations, Boston and Houston. They're not connected. They're not part of a local area network. So easiest thing to do, walk to the copier, scan the email, and we monitor that email on a time basis and bring it in. This isn't something you want to put on your personal mailbox, and I know in our email screenshot here it has my personal email, but this is something you'd set up like Houston office at your domain, and then it would capture it automatically and then apply it to the right content type. And by selecting the content type, it delineates where it goes physically within DocStar. So it's a pretty easy thing to set up. You do need to have some parameters here, like your server, whether you want to use IMAP or POP, and your IT folks can probably help you with that. The other thing is when we grab an email, we can grab the header information. So things like who it came from, the to mailbox, the subject, CC, things like that can also automatically be captured. So there's some value to using email to make some downstream workflow decisions. So certainly if we are monitoring AP invoices at yourdomain.com and we're reading vendors' invoices, it's possible from the from address from the email, we can figure out who the vendor is and then route that before anybody gets involved. So email is a great tool. Obviously, the downside is typically a 10 meg limit, so you're not scanning big documents or a lot of them. And you can certainly, fill up your mail server. So keep that in mind. So drag and drop, this is great when you got an email, maybe you don't use Outlook, so you can't use our Office integration. Maybe you're using Gmail or something, you just want to drag the attachment right into a folder. This is really easy to set up. Like I said, here's a screenshot. Basically create a local folder there on your desktop. Or if you're using, kind of a more enterprise deployment, you might have a folder on the server that you want to just put a desktop shortcut to on that particular user's. And, make sure you hit the delete files on completion, else it will continue to bring in the same documents. And again, you're just setting up what content type is it going to and how frequently do you want to run it. So it's very easy to set up. Polling can get down to 1 second, but keep that in mind. The more it's polling, the more it's consuming resources on your particular workstation. So structured OCR, and I'm sure everybody's heard OCR, optical character recognition. It's basically the ability to read data off computer-generated data, and not typically handwriting, off of a document. And so out of the box, DocStar comes with Zone OCR, and it comes with Content Search OCR. So Zone OCR is set up where you do an XY coordinate. We call it a region. And you can see here in the screenshot in green, it's looking at that purchase order number. Okay, so this is ideal for documents that you generate. You're not going to set up Zone OCR for your vendor invoices. It's just not going to work. You'd have to create too many templates. It would be too difficult to manage. We have another solution for that. This is things like your purchase orders, your invoices, your packing slips, your checks. And a lot of you that we've worked with, when we print your checks into the system, we Zone OCR the check number that's always in the top right-hand corner. We grab that value and we pass it to a data link to say, hey, what invoices does this check pay? And that is probably, we use that quite frequently. And again, with the nice OCR changes in the 1752 version, we're able to get even more accurate on that. Okay, so this isn't an end-all be-all. This is really designed for where you have structured data. And where I say here white space, documents shift when you scan them. So the more white space you can have around a value you want to extract, the better. This number sign here, this number sign here might interfere with that zone. So the more, build enough buffer of just empty space around the value, the best you can. That's going to give you optimal, results. Cover page. So using something like a barcode cover sheet. So this is great when you're batch scanning and you have a defined set of data. So we do a lot of terminated employee file scanning. I have 100 boxes over there in the file cabinet, and I have a spreadsheet, or my HRS system has essentially a whole list of all the terminated employees. So we use kind of like, word mail merge. You take all that data and it will automatically create the cover sheets for you in alphabetical order. And then you just go over and pull each folder out, put the barcode on front of it, and then, put the barcode on the next one. And you could scan multiple, batches of documents at one time. And every time it hits the barcode, it's going to automatically index that document or that folder. And then it's going to delete the barcode page. And then it automatically indexes that document to the right folder. So this is a great way. Barcodes are great because, one, you can index on them, but you can also separate on them. So that's hard to do in any type of zone OCR. You can't really separate on zone OCR in the core DocStar product. We do have another product, our advanced capture, that can do that kind of logic. But barcode's ideal for separation and data extraction. And the data extraction is very forgiving, meaning, a barcode is, you can look anywhere on the page for the barcode versus a zone where you have to say, only look in this area. I can draw a zone on the entire page looking for where that barcode exists. And then also the quality, on a zone OCR, an O and a 0 are very common. Now in a barcode, it's black and white. The white space between each black line is actually where it's reading. So, it's crooked a little bit. The quality of the print wasn't great. Barcode's going to be 99 typically % accurate when you're extracting that information. And again, a barcode is free. You can do 1D or 2D barcodes. Typical there is a code 39 or a 3 of 9 or code 128. Depending on the types of characters you're going to have. We'd suggest usually a code 39. You'll see here in the employee name, I have asterisks in the front end. We call those terminators. And that's ideal, when you're dealing with a barcode that might be on a document where there's other lines. The terminators tell us where that particular barcode value starts and stops. So, the code 39 includes that type of capability. So, certainly based on your particular needs, we can look at that in more detail. So yeah, here's just an example. I use an Excel spreadsheet and then basically select the employee name, and then below it will auto create that font. So again, it shows up like another font, the barcode. And code 39 you can download free of charge on the web. Right. You also have our print driver. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but within the DocStar client, there's a tab called Modules, and you'll see Print Import as one of those. So we'll quickly go through that. But this allows you to print into the system through any Windows print dialog. And when you print, it does create a PDF. So instead of you printing physically, scanning, and indexing, you print virtually. It prompts you for the content type, and you can index that document right there. This is great where you have kind of one-offs. If you're looking to, for instance, you cut check runs and you need an overlay, because when you print a check, it's just printing text. We have something called RPM that that allows you to print through one print selection, allows you to print to multiple locations. So physically print it and then dump a copy into DocStar. So we do have some other tools, but this is included free of charge. It's a great little utility. And also if you're using like Gmail or Yahoo Mail or whatever, and you have the attachment, this is another quick and easy way to get documents into the solution just through the print driver. We have the Microsoft Office connector. There's quite a few new features here. There is Office 365, but you do have to use a MAPI client, so you would have to use like Outlook, hooked into Office 365. I believe right now it's Office 2010 and above, and it supports those 4 Office products. If you're not seeing the DocStar tab, so in this top screenshot here, if you're not seeing this, you just have to go into your Trust Center within Outlook or Word or whatever. It is a COM add-in. You have to give it, sometimes it disables the DocStar capability there. So you just recognize that. if it doesn't show up. You do have to restart. Once you enable it and install it, you do have to restart the Office application. A few nice things. One, it does store in a native format. So if you're in Word and you save in through our connector here, it's going to save it as a docx file. And when you do check in and check out now, and you'll see there's a check-in section in the second screenshot here, it does check it out and automatically launches the native viewer. So if you're in DocStar and you click checkout and it's a Word document, it will automatically load the document into Word. Previously, it would just drop it to the downloads directory and you'd have to manually click on it. So there's some new features there within that. Okay, and then on the bottom now, you'll see in the bottom screenshot, there's a View Documents checkbox now. What that does is once it's captured into DocStar, it will pop it open in DocStar for your review. Okay, so great. And again, this is free of charge. A lot of people charge for this type of functionality. Capture and burst. So this is ideal when you have mixed sorts of documents. You just want to scan them in and you don't have to separate them manually. Then they're all in, and then in your thumbnails, there's a couple ways to do it, but in your thumbnails, you simply hit burst content item, which will separate the 3 pages in this example into 3 one-page documents, and then you can select the page you want to split from, and it will prompt you with this little split document dialog where you can select if it is a different content type and the title, and then again, you'll end up with multiple documents from that. So lots of different ways to handle that. Now, instead of bursting each content item, in the capture settings, there's this 1 page per file setting. So if you do enable that, every time you capture, you don't have to burst the content item. It will scan and import those documents as three single pages that aren't tied together. So that is a nice little workaround if you do burst and split documents. We're not going to go into too much detail on this, but unstructured data recognition, if you're thinking to yourself, wow, this kind of capture process is a pain in the butt, I want to just stick all my paper in and have it figure out what it is and put it in the right folder and index it automatically. To a large extent, that's what this is. Certainly there's some limitations, but we see a lot of unstructured documents like invoices, sales orders, transcripts, mortgage documents. So this is really like a mailroom application. It contextually classifies the document based on synonyms. So it looks for things like invoice number, invoice date, and if it sees those together, it might indicate that that's an invoice, and then it applies some logic. It's non-template based, so very much like a zone OCR where you template and you say, look in this area. That's not how this works. This uses layouts. The word invoice number could be in the top right, bottom left, top right, below another value, or it could be totally in another spot. So this is really a artificial intelligence type capture. You can start off with, there's a full what we call invoice action. It's built for invoices. It comes with 5,000 common definitions out of the box. So the idea is if you implement something like this, it will auto recognize new vendors, and it will automatically, typically out of the box, recognize a large amount, probably in the 70% range in terms of accuracy of data point extraction. And certainly there's going to be exceptions where we would build definitions for those. So some of our customers are using this. Some of the people on the phone are using this. Certainly, if you don't want to do any work, we have the outsource model. This allows us to scan and index for you. A couple options there. We can come pick up your paper and scan it for you on a weekly, monthly basis. You can scan it to us and we'll index it for you. So there's a few different models here, but if you're just kind of not into it, we can do this work for you. So obviously less data entry on your end. And then lastly is the push filing. So this is great if you work with an ERP system today. we want to leverage that data. So you enter the data, so it's usually a dual monitor approach. You enter the data in the ERP, you click a button, and then it files that data into the waiting scanned image in DocStar. So we're going to demonstrate this today and show you actually how that works. So the demonstration is really going to focus on probably the number one requested thing is how do I make my documents text searchable? So I could search by keyword. Okay, so we're going to show you a quick way to do that. And then cover sheet indexing. Okay, so how do I use a barcode cover sheet and set up a barcode zone OCR separation? Then we're going to do a quick purchase order zone OCR, so scan in a PO, read the PO number, go out to a data link, and populate the other information. And then lastly, a push filing. So auto indexing based on ERP data. So we're going to use Dynamics GP. We're going to be in Dynamics GP, and we're going to click a button, and it's going to file the waiting document. So let's get into the demonstration now. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to put that in on your right there. Hannah can answer any of the questions as they come. Feel free to reach out to us at our main number or me specifically, and we're more happy to put you to the right person. All right, so okay, so first thing, if you're familiar with the DocStar, this is you might be on an older version with the cloud, so this is somewhat of a newer build here. But in the system tray is this little icon, and this is our DocStar client. And this is where you're going to configure your scanner that we talked about in your batch import. Create a hot folder directory. That will all be done here. Now, if you want the printing or the Office integration, you just go to the Modules tab, and you have your Office integration and your printer right here. You just click on it, and it will automatically install for you. Okay. Now, up here in the top right, there's this yellow DocStar. If you go to User Preferences here, this is where you can set a number of your different preferences. One of them is around workflow and searching and viewing and all that kind of stuff. And you'll see here in the viewer, you have all sorts of additional OCR capabilities here. Probably not necessary for this discussion, but to get that client, this little client application I just showed you, if you go to the environment one, you have this little install or update client service. So that's where you just install it. It's pretty easy to access. So go to your user preferences and select environment, and that's how you're going to be able to get that client application. Okay, so let's now, if you're familiar, I'm going to go into the workflow designer. So this is where a lot of that capture is done, from a back-end perspective. But you can also do now, as you see in the capture area, you do have this editing capability here, and again, you can set up splitting and documents and kind of some of your ancillary kind of stuff here. But if you're wanting to do some of the things that I discussed, you're going to have to get access to the workflow designer. So the first thing I want to do here, we're going to convert to text. It's a one-step workflow. It's pretty easy to set up. Okay, so what you would do here is click on create step, and I have one step called full text search. And in the edit box here, all I do is I drag over the OCR. So you'll see OCR here. I just drag that over, and it will pop open this dialog here. Okay. So you do two things. This is pretty much all you have to do. Now you can play with the recognition mode. I wouldn't suggest that. But all you have to put in is this $ text. So if you do $ text, you'll see it automatically come up here. And this is the text layer. So when you're searching, every document has a text layer to it. So that's going to put all the OCR results into this text element. The second thing you have to do is get region. Now, just pull up any document. Okay, so I could pull up purchase here. Okay, so, and as you see in blue with the handles, I've created a zone. And if you're not familiar with how to do that, you just right click recognition, get region, and you draw a box. So you see this is a box that is overlaid onto that particular page. Okay, so once that's done, you are done. Click OK. Click OK here, and hit save, and this is now saved. So now, when we capture a document, so I'll just grab a contract. Okay, contract. We'll browse out, grab a contract. Okay. And when I do that, and I've already set that as actually a on the contract content type, the workflow set as convert to text. So you see here, it is. It's uploading, and come on. Okay, and now you see the convert to text. So in the workflow, convert to text, upload, and now that's in the system. And using quotes, so if I want to look for the phrase disclosing party in the text layer, I simply put quotes around it. If I don't put quotes, you'll find anywhere where it's disclosing or party, and it then finds that particular document, and you'll now notice if you go to the actions menu, show hits. You can also show document text. So this is that $ text is what creates this. And if you do show hits, it will actually highlight where it finds that word. Okay, so super easy. Obviously, we didn't find anything that says disclosing party in the content fields. It's actually looking in the body of the document. Okay. All right, step 2, cover sheet. Okay, so in this particular approach, we're going to use HR documents here, and I'm going to browse out. We're going to grab some sample HR. Scan HR with cover. Okay, so we have one 8-page document, one 8-page PDF, and you're going to see here we have 3 different employees documents, and they're different items. So in this particular case, we're going to come in. I got my HR batch import. Okay, so in this is actually 2-step, but doesn't have to be. So in this step, the first thing we're going to do is a barcode. Okay, so if you got to have barcode, that is a chargeable item. And you see here, I drag in the barcode action, and the output is going to be the employee name field. And when I get region here, type in the word HR here. Okay, so as you notice, when I bring in that cover sheet, there's a region over that barcode area. Okay, so it's going to look in that particular area to extract that barcode. And we're using, these are all the barcode types we quickly talked about: code 3 of 9, code 39. Code 39 extended for reserved characters, dashes, spaces, etc. And any enhancement we want to do to that. And so we basically, it reads the region and puts it into this field. Then we have the OCR on the document type. So in this case, we happen to use the type using zone OCR. So you see here, we have the word resume, and we have the zone in that region, and then that will read it into the document type field. Okay. Now, once we've done that, we want to then split on the barcode. So we have 3 different barcode pages. Every time we hit a barcode, split. Okay, and so you see here, every time it hits a barcode 3 of 9, remove, split the documents, and then remove the barcode page. Okay, so that's what this remove item here is. It removes that actual page. Okay, so let's take a look at how this works. So we got this in here. We're gonna select our HR batch, and we'll hit the upload. and the system will now look at those 3 documents and separate them. Okay. All right. All right. So we get some feedback. Get somebody put on here. Oh, good. All right. So now when we go in, we'll see under HR here, under Brent, we see Brent's W4. And so basically these 2 fields, employee name and doc type, got filled in with that barcode page. And then certainly the 2-page Brent is here. And then Howard, here's his resume. Again, resume, Howard. So super easy. Okay. So with that, that's a great way for batch processing of your documents. Now, again, I'm going a little fast through the workflow designer. That in itself is could be a whole session in itself. All right, so now let's look at capture, and we're going to do a purchase order. So let me purchase order, and we're going to grab a sample purchase order that you may have created. And we're going to do a zone OCR. So let's import that. And I've built this OCR, I'm going to call it test OCR here. Okay, so test zone OCR. Okay, and so I have it 2 steps. It doesn't need to be 2 steps. It could probably be in 1 step, but get zone. Okay, so we're going to use that OCR again. Okay, the difference here is we're going to set not to text, but we're going to set it to the PO number field. Okay, so first thing is all right, we're zoning in on that PO number, so that's what we need to put it, what field we need to put it into, and we're going to get region here, and let's put in purchase order. Okay, and you'll see that zone will show up on that particular document. Okay, so the zone will extract that particular area of that particular document. Okay, and then when we're done, we now have the PO from that particular zone. We're going to pass that value to a data link. Okay, so here, I've already pre-configured a data link. Anytime you're doing a zone OCR, you do want to utilize this string format, because what happens is when we grab that value, there might be spaces, and you can't see them, but you'll see here we have this trim right and left, and that trims any spaces before or after that purchase order number. Remember, when we're doing any type of matching or we're feeding this to a query to return other results, we need to make sure that that is as clean as possible. And then now we're going to pass this PO number to this data link, which will return the vendor name and the invoice number. Okay, so let's take a look at how that works. Okay, so I'm going to put on this test zone, okay, as the workflow. So this is the Acme PO here, and hit upload. Okay, so this is now going to go in my workflow queue because there is a workflow. Okay, so we go to the bottom here. Here's the Acme purchase order, and you'll see that it's in the getting zone state here. Okay, so again, it's going to look in this area of the document. I'll just refresh. And it should pull that zone value. You'll see that pop into the PO here. And then you'll see the other values pop in as well. While I am here, however, and while this is running, this is also a nice, so if I do keyword, just job number. Okay, so another nice feature is the lasso OCR. That's what I get for making changes while it's trying to do stuff. There you go. So now it's complete, and you can see here the PO numbers in here, and it brought back the vendor name and the invoice number. But while I'm on the screen here, if there was, like, for instance, an amount here, you do have the ability, and this is what we call lasso OCR. So under the recognition here, as long as that OCR shortcut is checked, when you click in any field and you just lasso that area, you'll see it populates into that field. So this is a nice little feature. Again, you just lasso over that area and it populates that information. Okay, so another nice feature there. All right, and then the last is our push filing. So I'm going to open up here. I have a GP screen. Okay, so I have GP on the right. I've entered some information. Now, this works with a lot of things. Nav, Navision, Sage 300, Sage 100, depending on the type of application. So I've entered the metadata into my GP screen on your right here. Now I want to take all this data and put it into my system on the right. So I have a button here. When I press DocStar File, you'll see the far right, it passes that data right to the URL and doesn't show anything. Wonderful. Sorry. Let me try that again. All right. It always seems to be that case. Probably timed out. All right. There we go. Okay. I'll just do push filing. So I have it set up here for push filing. Go to that value. Save. Okay. And I'm going to hit the push. See here. Of course. All right. Let me restart that. That typically works. I tested it right before this. This is a tool called Application Integrator. So it is something that works with, most any accounting system for that matter. It doesn't have to be Great Plains. And let's open up this one here. Okay, push filing. Yeah, it's cutting off my thing for some reason. That's why it's generating that error. All right, well, typically it would index that information automatically within the system. And, the nice thing about this is that if you're already entering data somewhere and that data is in the database, using the screen type capture is very effective. And then obviously because it's using that information, information you've already entered in the system to be able to do that. And so it's a really cool solution for that. So let's see, get rid of this and let's try that again one more time. I think yeah, I'm sorry. That's embarrassing. Well, hey, so we got most of it done here today. I'll kind of end with that in terms of the different types of ways to integrate. From a capture perspective, if there's any questions, I'm certainly in the question and answer area. I can answer those. Or if you want to raise your hand, if you have any active questions on the panel on the right, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you and you can ask any questions you'd like. In the meantime, if you have a need, if you're thinking, hey, is there a better way? That's where you can reach out to us and we can help. That's really what we're here for. So if there are any other questions, feel free to reach out to marketing@piftech.com and or give us a ring and we can handle any of your specific questions. Thanks everybody for attending and see you on the next one. Take care.